it into its early 20th century history. So the red building is the Government Art School, as you see now, and the white is the Indian Museum. They become two adjacent precincts. Okay. Now, this is the time, the late 19th, early 20th century, is when the Calcutta School of Art would grow from strength to strength as a forum for the fine arts, both as a thriving center of academic art practice and as a place from where Abanindranath Tagore cultivated his first batch of students and launched the alternative movement of Indian style painting. Abanindranath is vice principal here from 1906 to 1912. However, even as the dual legacies of academic and Indian style painting jostled within the precincts of the art school, and the art school became a more defined stronghold of the educated middle class as against the artisanal classes, the problems of securing a career in art never went away, nor did the hierarchies in the newly expanding educational and professional openings for this class that always kept art education a distinctly lesser option. And this is something that I would like to think about more, that why is it that for the middle class, coming into art education was never as attractive a proposition as going into the literary spheres or different education. While the Calcutta of these years bred a powerful circle of art critics, connoisseurs, and patrons, it evolved a significant infrastructure for the practice and reception of modern art, which I write about elsewhere. For most art school trainees, there was a long, difficult road to be traversed from eking out different livelihoods as drawing teachers, art tutors, book illustrators, cartoonists, printmakers, to gaining the success and recognition of an artist. The emergence of a separate department of commercial art in the school in the mid-1920s, a subject that I still have to research more fully, can be seen to have provided a new platform of training and professional practice for such a group and given it a more specific orientation towards modern industrial design and the art of advertising. The expanding indigenous circuit of commercial picture making that was fast spreading from the art of book illustration and cover designing into product advertising drew its practitioners both from within and outside the art school network. At the turn of the 20th century, one of the most prolific careers was that of the woodcut artist and illustrator, Priyagopal Das, whose work I've already shown you. His dates are 1870 to 1928, who emerged out of an informal structure of training and apprenticeship, whose mastery of a multichrome wood engraving carried this printmaking technique out of the popular book and picture trade of Bottala into a different aesthetic genre. While a careful self-inculcation of the techniques of Western academic art clearly marked out his oeuvre from those of the Bottala wood engravers, the choice of not turning to popular mythological genres also set him apart from the milieu of the flourishing picture presses of the time. Modeling his figures of women and children on Western magazine pictures, as we see here, both the child and the woman are clearly drawn from that resource, Priyagopal Das evolved a trademark style of children's book illustration and book and journal covers that he extended into his commissioned advertisements for different Swadeshi brand toiletries and pharmaceutical products that had then begun to come onto the market. So you can see the passage from the book illustration to the product advertising. His career marks an early moment in the coming of age of the modern commercial artist. So here's a figure I'd like to do more work on. It marked the heyday of a style of illustrations and advertising that marked its modernity and superiority of other competing bazaar picture genres by its technical and representational finesse and clear referencing of a Western repertoire. It also prefigures the time when the orbit of commercial art would be moving from the printed page to product labels. So there's a lot of product labels in multi-chrome wood engraving that Priyagopal Das does, like we see here. So he has a whole repertoire of product engraving. We were very fortunate to come across a whole album of his commercial art and designs with the family, which we were able to document. Now, Priyagopal Das's career also then prefigures and marks a time when in general in Bengal, we have the art of advertising and publicity moving from the printed page to matchbox covers. Okay, this is an image of the firm of C.K. Sen and Company, who were the manufacturers of the Java Kushum oil, who was one of the main clients of Priya Gopal Das. So here he's even doing a wood engraving of the manufacturing firm. But anyway, Priya Gopal Das's career also, as I said, prefigures a time when product advertising is moving to matchbox, gramophone record covers, and enamel signboards. So here are matchbox covers, gramophone record covers, and painted enamel signboards. All of this is work that we've been documenting in the visual archive of the center. Now, I come now to the last section called The New Age of Art and Industry. It was the profiling of all these new forms of advertising in these different media and products, from matchboxes to textiles to record covers and hoardings, and the cultivation of a new idiom of modern commercial design that marked the launch of the Art and Industry Journal in Calcutta in 1942, something I've already referred to coincide with the organization of the first all-Indian commercial art exhibition in the city. So these are some of the kind of prize-winning advertisements for a variety of products, cement, tea, textiles, that would be featured in the exhibitions and would find their way into the journal. Dedicated almost wholly to the art of advertising, this magazine, called Art and Industry, so again a play on the same two terms, art and industry, the first of its kind in India, carried specialized articles on the techniques of layout, lettering, and typography, just to give you a sense of some of the kinds of pages, and on the new processes of color printing and reproduction, as well as on the designing of packages, posters, and street hoardings. Okay, so even as many of the pieces, and this I found very interesting, deliberated at length on the place of the fine artist in advertising and in the larger field of industrial design. So there's a lot of deliberation that does the fine artist have a place in this world of advertising? The notion of design here gets extended from the sphere of woven textiles, for instance, as we see here, textiles and fabrics, to shoes, industrial manufactures, but you also see a distinctly modernist aesthetic in design emerging, even to the compartments of trains and airplanes. So we see how the notion of design is getting extended from the traditional sphere of the fabric to the modern train compartment too. And it also comes to be grounded in the distinctly modernist aesthetic of the period, which we see here. Side by side with the progressive movements that famously produced a new international vocabulary for Indian modernist art on par with its Western counterparts, we see the unfolding of a parallel modernist trend in the commercial art of the nation. So I just put the very famous Hussain of those years, 50s, with modernism in commercial art. So it's interesting to think about one which has not been talked about so much. As in art, so also in design, modernism in design too would need to continuously reinforce its national moorings. While it drew on the one hand on the motifs, material, and work processes of what the scholar-collector Ajit Ghosh termed India's great art crafts, it also looked to India's traditions of painting and sculpture to lend Indian commercial art its special national content. The covers of the first issues of the Art and Industry bear rich testimony to the concomitant national and international encodings of modern design. Let's look at two of these. For instance, on the left, the first cover carries an image of classical sculpture against a grid naming the different manufacturers, services, and clients that supported the new art of advertising. And on the right, the 1946 issue carried a note about its cover that underlined the blend of the ancient and the contemporary in the making of good design, noting that the outline jar motifs were from the pottery of the excavated city of Mohenjo-daro, while the caliper design was that of Brown and Sharp of New York. The sponsorship of the exhibition and the magazine even more strongly underscores the coming together of the national and the international. The main stakeholders and advertisers consisted of a powerful consortium of national industry and enterprise in tandem with the British firms and the government. Firms such as Burma Shell, Dunlop Rubbers, Metal Box, Bata Shoes, Tata Iron and Steel, the Indian Tea Market Expansion Board. This is one of their tea advertisements. Bengal Chemicals and Pharmaceuticals. They would be sponsoring on the left, as we see, both prizes and a big sponsor of the journal. Mahalakshmi Cotton Mills. Newspaper groups such as the Hindustan Standard and Ananda Bazar Patrika, and government departments like the Railway Board and the Department of Information and Broadcasting. We see how, in the image on the right, how the new art of advertising also holds up a powerful mirror to the turbulent political events of the time, like the great Calcutta killing of 1946, and the self-anointed role of the press in these events. So very interestingly, talks about how the city of Calcutta in 46 and the role the press plays in, both, being a watch kind of dog of what was happening. So advertising becomes very interestingly reflecting the times, the political events of the time. We also find the names of several established artists of the city, Mukul De, J.P. Ganguly, B.C. Law, Jamini Roy, appearing in the judging committee of the art and industry exhibitions, beginning prize funds for the best exhibits, and themselves offering designs for products sold at these shows. Okay, so here is a Tea Market Expansion Board with a B.C. Law Prize. There was also very interesting bits of family history that I personally came across going through the pages of the art and industry. I come across the name of P. Guha Thakurta, my father's eldest brother, who was in the Tea Market Expansion Board, who died in 1942 and about whom I knew very little. And I actually got to know about his career through this journal. And his wife, Nilima Guha Thakurta, who emerged in the pages of these magazines as important patrons of the movement. P. Guha Thakurta promoted one of the period's best tea advertisements as the public relations manager of the Tea Market Expansion Board. And with Nilima Guha Thakurta, we have a rare woman advertising professional of these years in the form of DJ Kema. Again, careers I hope to explore a bit more. As in several institutional spheres, in this sphere of industrial design and advertising too, the transition to independence is signposted by the prominent configuration of Indian capital, social influence, professional expertise, and artistic talent. The pages of the Art and Industry magazine amply reflect the new nationalizing thrust of British-owned firms in a post-independence Calcutta that would remain one of the main hubs of the country's advertising industry. We could take the case here of the firm of DJ Kema. With branches in Bombay, Madras, Lahore, and Kanpur, the new Indian language service of DJ Kema was highlighted in a publicity campaign of 1947 that talked on how one advertisement becomes 14 as the firm took on the translation of their advertisements in 14 Indian languages to reach out to the proverbial common man across the nation. This firm was also the one directly involved in the production and layout of the Art and Industry magazine, where the credit for the artwork in the early issues went to a creative team headed by none other than Satyajit Ray. The establishment of DJ Kema would stand central in the unfolding careers of several commercial artists of the city, not least of all in the making of Satyajit Ray's early career as illustrator, advertising artist, and book and poster designer. To look back on the work of 3 generations of pioneering print entrepreneurs, artists, illustrators, and writers of the famous Ray family, Upendra Kishore Rai Chaudhary, Shukumar Rai, and Satyajit Ray, grandfather, father, and son, is to trace a rising graph in the art of the book and its passage into new genres of commercial art. Such a graph travels, and I'll briefly show you examples of their work, from the book illustrations of U. Rai, Upendra Kishore Rai Chaudhary, from the early pages of the journal Probashi, to the printed color plates. He was a pioneer of 3-tone color printing for journals like Probashi and Modern Review. So from the art of book illustration and cover design, we move to the illustrations by Shukumar Rai of his fabled books of nonsense verse, very well known in Bengali, Abul Tabul and Hajo Barolo, in the next decade, to the unfolding of Satyajit Ray's career as illustrator, advertising artist, and book and poster designer through the 1940s, 50s, and 60s. This is Satyajit Ray. This is a book by his grandfather, cover which he designed, and this is the poster for his very famous film, Devi. The first in his family to be formally trained as an artist, Satyajit Ray, following his years at Kala Bhavan Shantiniketan, 1940-43, began his professional life as a visualizer and art director as DJ Kema in 1943. Very rare example of his work at DJ Kema. The same year, two of its senior advertising professionals, Nilima Guha Thakurta and D.K. Gupta, branched out from the firm to set up the city's landmark publishing unit, the Signet Press, in 1943. And it is in the parallel work that he did for this press, like we see in this another book cover, that the young Satyajit Ray fine-honed his skills in designing type fonts that was given the name Ray Roman, illustrations and book covers. Coincidentally, the closing down of DJ Kema in 1956 coincided with Ray ending his stint in advertising and the historic success of his first film, Pather Pachali. So the two go together, the closing down of DJ Kema and the making of Pather Pachali. It could be argued that it is a celebrity persona like Satyajit Ray who retrospectively brings glamour and attention to the neglected vocation of the commercial artist. Surrounding him were several predecessors and contemporaries in the advertising profession of far humbler backgrounds, many of whose careers were also made at DJ Kema's, some of whom came to be featured in the pages of Art and Industry. So this is again very interesting that for the first time the commercial artist is featured as artists in the pages of the journal. The figure of Annoda Munshi, 1905 to 1984, appears in a short profile in the very first issue of the journal. The write-up portrays Annoda Munshi with all the characteristic qualities of the reckless, temperamental artist, brimming with ideas and creativity, turning to music for inspiration, even if the end result was only to, I quote, bring forth a campaign for cement or cigarettes or someone's soaps. The recognition that is sought for him and for many commercial artists like him is that of, I quote, an artist of ordinary things. It shows the attempts to give full artistic credentials to the persona of the commercial artist, even as Munshi's career shows the many leaps and routes through which he moved from a small-town family background in craft in Jessore in East Bengal, where his father carved in mother of pearl, through an incomplete education at the Government School of Art, Calcutta, to becoming, I quote, the finest layout artist in the country. So 2 years after joining the art school, without finishing the course, he started earning his livelihood as a show card writer and window dresser at Calcutta's Army and Navy stores, before getting his break at the advertising department of the Times of India offices in Bombay, and then securing his appointment at DJ Kema's Calcutta in 1935. So we also see the routes through which these artists move from show card writer, window dresser, to a kind of graphic artist in the newspaper, into an advertising firm. His reputation as the topmost commercial artist of Calcutta's advertising world was made over the 15 years he worked in this firm. A remarkable photograph from the 1940s shows Annoda Munshi on the left and his creative team holding up their easels and drawing boards in the art room of DJ Kema, a group of dhoti-clad Bengali men in a British advertising firm proudly announcing the Indianization of both the profession and its artistic vocabulary. This is especially borne out in the manner in which Annoda Munshi's images mark out a sharp break from the westernized models of Priyogopal Das's illustrations and advertisements. It is interesting to see how he forgoes the academic realist style and draws instead on the legacy of Indian-style painting that to him best exemplified the national model. Cover of Art and Industry, and this is the cover of the radio journal Betar Jagat for a Durga Puja issue. as we see in these examples of his work, in tune with the predominant style of book illustrations and cover designs of the time, Annada Munshi over the 1940s and 50s evolved his own distinct Indian modern idiom of commercial art. Like the textiles of Indian mills and the Indian-made tea he promoted, his art of advertising also stood as 100% Swadeshi. It is the work of one of Munshi's junior colleagues at DJ Kema's, Arun Kumar Ganguly, O.C. Ganguly, 1920 to 1996, who can be seen to bring a more modernist poster art style to the art of advertising. This modern poster art style marks out the full range of O.C. Ganguly's work of the 1950s and 60s, from the advertisements he made, for instance, for Murphy Radio or Lipton's Tea. I'll run through some of his work. For Dunlop tires or various pharmaceutical products. KLM, 2 more pharmaceutical products. Or in the posters he designed for the Indian Railway Centenary and for various cultural functions in the city's older and newer theatres. So this is his centenary exhibition poster, and this is for a production in Calcutta's New Empire Theatre. The roots of private training and apprenticeship through which O.C., as he was known in the advertising circuit, comes into the profession also shows how through these years the required skills of commercial art could often be learnt on the job outside the formal curricula of the art schools. Starting off as a teenage cartoonist in Bengali journals, O.C. began informally learning the art of lettering and page layout with a commercial artist who worked at the Statesman, Calcutta. He had to make do for years with what in advertising parlance is called assembling materials for portfolios in his first job at Stronach and Company, 1935 to 41, until his prize-winning exhibits in the Art and Industry exhibition in 1942 caught the attention of Annada Munshi, who drew him into his team at DJ Kema's. This is the point from where O.C.'s career as an advertising artist properly took off. When DJ Kema closed down in 1956, O.C. Ganguly went on to become the art director of the Press Syndicate Limited, and then set up his own independent commercial art studio in 1962 called Unit 62 at Dharmatala Street that became the source of livelihood for several art college products as they tried to launch themselves as artists. Now, of course, there's much more work to be done on these artists, on these studios and presses, but my time is up, and I will therefore round up. Now, as I said, I've taken the story through the 40s and 50s into the early 60s, and there's much more work that needs to be done on this period. But to end, let me place these career profiles, especially the 2 I presented of Annada Munshi and O.C. Ganguly, at the key mid-20th century juncture that marked the maturing of the commercial art profession and the heyday of the advertising